September meeting of the mayor and city council to order. Let's stand up. I'll ask Councilman Bradford if he would give the invitation.
Sure, let's pray. Father God, I just thank you, God, tonight for the city of Lafayette, for each and every person that lives in this city, and for the people that are involved in the administration and the activities and the business of this city. God, I just ask that you be with us tonight as we do the business of the city of Lafayette. Please, God, bless all those involved in the administration of the city. Please bless us in our judgment, God, and give us your wisdom. Please, God, allow the city of Lafayette's business to be your business. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Bradford.
Start with the flag.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone on this rainy evening, but I didn't realize it was a rainy evening until I just looked out there a second ago. Item C, approval of minutes from the regular meeting of August the 14th and the special called meeting of August the 28th. These have been put in your Dropbox. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those for approval of both sets of minutes, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Old business, community pride update.
I had intended to have a picture of the dock, which I did not get uploaded in time. The dock at the city lake is underway, provided that we don't hit any major hurdles. They've hit a couple rocks, driving piling so far. We should have it finished early next week. With the gangway and decking and everything, should be ready to use. So, pretty excited to see another addition there at the lake. I had several positive comments so far, and a lot of interest, just people driving over and wanting to see it and see the progress. Other than that, just continuing the work on nuisance abatement and general property maintenance, just like usual.
Yeah. Thank you. I was over paddleboarding yesterday afternoon, and it looks nice. The old lake looks nice. Got Teresa a paddleboard, and both of us were out there last night, and I'll let you guess which one of us was the only one that hit the water. This guy was. She looked back and checked on me, and she almost hit the water, but she didn't. She saved herself. I went into the water, but it felt good. Anybody want to go over there swimming? It's pretty nice. Now, just to let you know.
Don't do that.
New business, upcoming events. There you have our list of upcoming events up there on the board. Had court yesterday. The city attorney had to retrieve a chair, I think, probably from movement of court yesterday. That's okay. Fly in. Chris, you want to mention anything?
Just please encourage people to come out. It's going to be another good event. Hopefully the weather's great. I think it's showing it's going to be pretty nice. So we should have a big crowd again.
I was on Let's Chat yesterday and talking mainly about Heritage Day coming up. Rachel Williford and I, but also mentioned the fly-in, got the fly-in in right there at the last minute. Tomorrow we'll be at WRCB, and I'll do the same thing there, Rich. Thank you for all that you do to promote all these things that we do in the city. Fly-in starting at 10 to 3, 10 to 3 Saturday. I think it's supposed to be a nice day too. I think weather's going to be good. Next Thursday is the homecoming parade, and there's also a pep rally. Pep rally's still on as far as we know. So at the conclusion of the parade, we'll have a pep rally. We used to have them all the time. We'll have one at Joe Stock Park. That's the conclusion of the homecoming parade. Southeast Whitfield is who the Ramblers play. Heritage Day, starting with a parade this time. October the 7th, going until 5 o'clock. Next Downtown Development Authority meeting is October the 9th, at 5:30 to 6:30 at the library. And then we have our next city council meeting on October the 9th. Our last movie in the park for the season is October the 14th. October the 16th, Municipal Court, and then the next big event that we have after the fly-in is Scare on the Square on Halloween from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. Also got a little bit of that in on the show yesterday too. So those are upcoming events. Anything that we need to add to that? I think that pretty much took care of it, didn't it? Item B, approval, adoption of the millage rate. We had a public meeting earlier. So I need a motion for us to adopt the millage rate.
I'll make a motion to adopt the millage rate.
The same millage rate as it
It's 2.8.
2.82. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those for adoption of keeping the millage rate the same, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Susie, thank you for filling in
You're welcome.
tonight. When I walked in, Brenda was walking out. She said, "I'll see you." And she had a brace on her hand. I don't know if she just got that out. She keeps that in her desk and just pulls that out.
Yeah.
On occasions. She may just pull that out on occasions.
She's got out of more things.
Yeah. Whenever looks like a long meeting and a lot of note taking, she probably does that. But she's got a little bit of arthritis, I think, so keep her in your thoughts. Item C, adopt fiscal 2018 budget. The city manager has met with each of us and gone over the budget in detail. We went over the line item budget in detail, and it is available. Is it online? Do we have it online?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll get it out there.
So, city manager, go ahead.
Overall, pretty standard. There is probably about $300,000 more capital in this budget than last year. In various places, as you know, as we discussed, the city needs to continue to invest more in infrastructure. There's water line and electric, some electric infrastructure money there, just various in different departments. And again, as you can see, it's a balanced budget. It's, every year we start off with the same goal of actually trying to budget a surplus, and it's difficult to do. We have to cut a lot of capital requests that arguably should be a priority and should be in there, but we continue to try to catch up more of that capital, more of those capital needs.
So you see we have a balanced budget of 25,
675,
yeah,
536.
675, 536. So we will work off of that, see what happens. So I need a motion for us to adopt the fiscal 2018 budget.
Make a motion that we adopt the fiscal 2018 budget as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those for adoption of the budget, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. We're not going to have to shut down our government, which is good. Health insurance. It is renewal time for our health insurance, and I think we're fixing the swap.
Fortunately, we had already started the bid process for the reinsurance. So UMR The administrator, we're still under contract with UMR from last year, so there were no changes there. We have the ability to bid the reinsurance portion every year, which we already started the process of. Last year, our carrier, Symetra, or this year, in the last month or so, Symetra came back with a cost increase of approximately $270,000 for reinsurance. So this, just this line item right here, the line item B, we were looking at well over $500,000 of cost there. And fortunately, BB&T had already started the process, and Sun Life is another comparable company to Symetra. BB&T's has history with them. They've used them in other places. They've not had issues with payment and claims and things like that. Symetra actually came in a little bit lower cost than, Sun Life came in a little bit lower than Symetra. So we're recommending that we move to Sun Life. And there's an attachment out there that is the reinsurance agreement. Mr. Womack has already reviewed it, is okay with it, and recommend that we make that move to avoid a cost increase of somewhere around $275.
So we, as a city, we've self-insured for several years, and the reinsurance is just the stopgap. And that's what this is. So do we have a motion to approve the Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada as our reinsurance company?
Is that the only issue we're addressing right now, or are we addressing all the issues? You're only recommending that change?
That's the only change. It's the only change I'm recommending. We're still under contract with UMR, and this is just a reinsurance change.
So what I'm saying is, you're not asking us to take any action on anything. Everything else is self-propelled, and then we don't need to take an action on that.
Correct. The only other thing
I've talked to you next time.
No, I mean, the UMR, you said, if you pull that back up. So we got administration, reinsurance, claims budget, healthcare reform tax. You don't want a general action from us, you just want us to take action on B? Or do we need to adopt everything?
I see what you're saying.
I guess if we go ahead and adopt everything, it'll be on the safe side. So I'd have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure that what we adopted last year was a 2-year contract with UMR.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So
Right,
all we're doing is the reinsurance really, but I think either way is okay.
Okay, so we're not addressing the clinic either this time?
We're not prepared to address the clinic. And the wellness plan in general, the county has assembled a team of people, I guess a committee, that has been looking at their entire healthcare, starting with their administrator or their broker. And they're still in the process of evaluating what they're going to do when it comes to their wellness plan, the clinic. Mr. Whitfield and I have been talking about where they're at in that process, and really I think it's wisest for us to wait and see what they're going to do, and then decide whether or not we're going to follow their lead or potentially go off on our own. Really just kind of waiting on them, giving them time to evaluate and make a decision on what they're going to do with the county.
I'm gonna take it, go out on the limb here and say they probably don't do anything with their life. I'm just going out on the limb there. I certainly will. All right, so, need a motion for renewal of the health care?
I make a motion that we utilize and enter into the agreement with, I get the name,
Sun Life.
Sun Life for reinsurance for the upcoming fiscal year.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? I call the question. All those for entering into the agreement with Sun Life, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Item E.
One of the aerator motors in the pond at the wastewater treatment plant failed. And we sent the motor to Whitfield Electric Motor Sales to basically tear it down and evaluate what repairs are needed to the motor. They've done the evaluation and come back with a quote that you see attached. $8,944.50. And recommend making these repairs to get this motor back in operation. This is part of the treatment process that makes it all work. Keeps oxygen in the water and makes sure that the bacteria is doing its job. Well, we have 5. I mean, 6 motors.
What's the time frame of them getting it done?
Probably 2 to 3 weeks after we get approval.
What's the cost of the new motor?
It's probably 30,000. 30,000 or more.
How old is this motor?
20 years, I think. It was put in, I think, 93, 94, so it's a little over 20 years. And it's a large motor. It's a 100 horsepower dual speed motor, so it's a fairly large unit.
Is this the first time you've had trouble with it?
I look back in the records, and this one is the first time as far as the what we're having to do to it now. When the units were new, there was some warranty work done on them, but since then it's been fine.
How long do you anticipate this motor to last? I know you can't get the.
Hard to say. I hope it lasts. I hope it lasts 10 years after I get it going again.
It should. I mean, it was common practice for us to rebuild motors, especially a motor that size. Now, when you're down in the, half horse or 3-5 horse, something like that, you just throw them away and buy another. When you get on up really above 30 or 50 horse, I'm not getting a complete rewind and all that here, but in a lot of cases, you're getting a new motor in the old house. I mean, so it ought to have substantial life bearing or barring any,
You get 9 years out of it, that'd be less than $1,000 a year, whereas we'd have to get 35 out of a year. Probably a pretty good deal, I'm guessing. That's what I would do. Any other questions? Good questions, hopefully. No further question. All those for the Whitfield Electric motor sales,
Who made the motion?
oh, we don't have a motion. I need a motion. My fault. Nobody made a motion. We'll ask some questions, yeah. So I need a motion, then a second, then we'll vote.
Okay. I'll make a motion to repair the motor.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to repair the motor. Now we can vote. All those for repairing the motor, raise your hand. Whitfield sales, electric sales, motion carries 4-0. Item F, body cameras for the police. City manager.
The chief and I have discussed this probably a handful of times. We've discussed it on and off with this. And just as far as the need to equip our officers with body cameras, we have in-car cameras, but as y'all know, there's a lot of cases where they're outside the view of the in-car camera, and we feel like this is a necessary thing that we should do from a liability and an accountability standpoint to kind of take the next step in the police department with regards to anything that could go wrong. Chief, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is, I'm trying to do this in phases. We've had cameras in the car since 1998. We're trying to shuffle into a new technology, wireless technology in the cars. We want to go to body cameras. In this particular company, they make the gold standard. It's all wireless. It's going to integrate. I want to buy these first, and as we change the in-car cameras in the cars, they will be compatible with these. There have to be some other things involved, but it's just the climate of what we have now. We need this. Everybody's shooting pictures of us. It's always nice to have something, shooting in its entirety. It has great evidentiary value. We're probably, a few years behind on this. It's time to go in that direction. I'm actually having some in-car camera failure, and before I start spending $5,000 or $6,000 for a camera, I want to go to these, and then as I replace the older cameras, it will be of this version of camera, which will all integrate together wirelessly. It's just from a standpoint of course, everybody knows why we need it. Okay, I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. It's time to buy them. And the reason I'm not asking for in-car cameras right now is the cost. If you have any questions about what they cost, we buy them straight from the manufacturer, so there's not a bid process. If you want watch guard, you can't go buy it from this company or this company or this company. They're straight out of Texas, and kind of what you see there is what you get. And we're going to buy 15 units. One will go to the SRO at the high school, and then we'll do all the records management for it at the police department for now until we get servers involved in the future.
We to kind of say what's not been said, we've all seen cases where a police officer was recorded by an individual, and that is posted online. Whether or not the entirety of what happened was posted online is always in question. And the ability for an individual to edit the video and change the perspective of what happened is just too easy. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons to do this. And as far as what type of system, like the chief said, he's done a lot of research. He's worked with Scott Underwood on that, and they both feel very strongly that this is the best one. This is the best in the business.
I guess I want to say I'm really proud of the chief and of the police department for coming to us and actually asking that we do this. I think that there's a lot of people that would not want to be recorded at their job. I mean, it just feels, if we said we're going to put a body camera on you so that we can watch what you're doing, regardless of how good the motives are, it just feels intrusive. It feels like an invasion. But and so I feel like in some ways, I mean, I would be uncomfortable asking for that. And I'm really impressed that they understand the need for this. And I think that if we adopt this system, number one, it's from a consumer side, non-law enforcement is the best thing that you can do probably to increase the customer service in that area, because anybody that knows that they're being filmed is going to act that way. And so it's great. It's great for the citizens. I think we got great officers. I'm not worried about that, but I feel like it's a great thing we can do from the consumer side. And on the other hand, I was telling the city manager, when he and I talked about it earlier, I watched a video earlier this year of a police officer that was shot 3 times in South Carolina, and was just walking up to a guy, didn't think he was armed. Man hadn't been real aggressive. He was just suspected maybe he'd stolen a bottle of liquor from a convenience store. And the officer was just walking up to him and said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute, basically, and the man turned around and shot him 3 times. And the officer lived in this video, but the guy was wearing a hoodie, and he ran off, and the officer was shot. I mean, he wasn't pursuing him. I don't think they would have caught the guy, much less convicted him, without the body camera footage. So I mean, I feel like it's something that if people know, so not only is it good for the citizens, but I feel like if people know, hey, in Lafayette, they're filming you. When they get out of the car, you want to hit this officer, you want to shoot this officer, you're being filmed, and it's wireless. I mean, so it's good for both sides, you know, and it can help the prosecution a lot. So I think that for both of those reasons, it's a really good, responsible thing for us to do. And you know, I've said for years they better be glad I'm not a Superior Court judge, because if anybody had consent to search or anything that wasn't, in this day and age, that wasn't recorded, I'd throw it out, because it's you tell me you don't have the ability to go, hey, may I search your car? I'm recording this. You know, and I know that that's not the legal standard, but it's ridiculous that someone would say they couldn't record that. So I'm all for it.
Is this a budgeted item?
It's not as it's presented.
Where's the money gonna come from?
And do you recall off the top of your head? We had looked at, I know I had room in the city manager under technology. If it needs to all come from there, it can come from there.
I'm not opposed to it, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I think.
We had a plan.
Yeah, I think what the city manager told me was that we had budgeted for next year. And he had some monies where he's trying to look it up. He said, look, I've got this money here, and that will relieve us of this obligation in the budget 3 weeks from now. If we.
It was gotta be there now somewhere.
Yeah, it was gonna, yeah, that he had told me, I don't remember.
So I've got 32,000 right here in the city manager account that's been unused. So we were gonna try to budget into next year's budget. But rather than, you know, as tight as it is trying to balance, we've got some upside essentially in this year's budget, and that's where that's.
So it's coming out of the
Right.
It's not.
And keep it. Of course, everybody, I know Councilman.
This year's budget.
Yeah, that way we don't have, I had the cameras budgeted for next budget, and this will relieve that. It won't-
I just wanna make sure we have.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanna ask one other question.
Yes,
When
sir.
we changed, police chiefs, but this says Chief Jason Stedman.
Oh, that's where they, watch guard sent it to Jason for a bid.
That's the word chief got me.
Yeah, well, he's the assistant chief, they probably just didn't, he probably thinks he's the chief.
Oh, yeah, we've been meaning to tell you something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, and I know Councilman Garmany knows this, I'm not saying this for his benefit, but I think everybody needs to understand that a budget does not reflect dollars. It reflects what we expect dollars to be and how we would like to spend the dollars we expect to come in. So, I mean, the other question would be,
But they gotta be there.
that's what I'm saying. A budget doesn't represent bank accounts, it represents what we would like for them to be. So, I mean, we have the money to make this purchase too, right? It's not just, it's not just in the budget, we have the cash to do this, right?
So it will be out of this budget, the current budget that we're in. Any other questions? I call for a motion. Do I have a motion that we buy body cameras from WatchGuard?
I make a motion that we purchase these body cameras from WatchGuard as quoted.
I'll second.
2005. Have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those for purchase of the cameras, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. I too think that this is a great purchase, by the way. What's our time frame?
I'll order them tomorrow, and it'll be 4 weeks.
A month away. Good.
Yeah, but when you get stopped, they'll say, the body camera wasn't working that day, we don't know what happened.
No, we have in-car cameras too now. For the record, you did make, we haven't
I'm
had
joking.
in-car cameras since
He's
19.
trying to get me.
I'm just joking.
Damn easy. We sensitive about that stuff.
I know. Well, there are some, it's not Lafayette, but there are some that miraculously their cameras were not working that day always.
Mine was
It's
just
not Lafayette.
Mine was just always muted somehow. I couldn't figure out how to turn the mic on.
Right.
All right. Next item, meter reader vehicles, plural. City manager?
We had a 2012 Jeep Compass that was totaled in a wreck. It was not our fault, fortunately. The other driver was at fault, but the vehicle was totaled. After some deliberation back and forth, we were able to get $10,275.58 from, I think it was Progressive Insurance, for that vehicle. But that created a need in the department. In addition to that, we already have one that we were trying to budget next year, beginning October 1st, to replace the 2008 Ford Escape. And these vehicles are very frontline. They travel the entire footprint of our water and obviously natural gas and electric. So it's critical that they're reliable, and making the recommendation that we go ahead and purchase 2 of the Chevrolet Equinox LS. You see that it's about $700 higher than the Jeep. Looking at the 2 local options, Jenkins and Jackson. Looking at mileage, we also looked at a diesel just to, one of the things we were focusing on is what kind of gas mileage can we get given that these vehicles travel such a large area. And then trying to turn that into dollars. So we also looked at a Honda, for that reason, because of gas mileage, looked at the Nissan Road. And the Equinox, while it's about $700 more, is about $200 a year better on gas. So you get that money back in gas mileage by going with the Equinox as opposed to the Jeep Cherokee. And budget, I've obviously got too many budget numbers running in my head, because normally I can remember this stuff. But this is, like I said, it's another one of those situations where we're going to budget it next year. In an effort to try to make that easier, we tried to pull it in this year where we had some upside. And the upside was, we had vehicles budgeted while in water.
Sewer department,
Sewer.
there was a vehicle for sewer that we didn't pursue this year. 35,000 budget item.
Okay. So we had 35,000 budgeted for vehicles in sewer, and then the 10,000 from the insurance settlement brings you to 45. 2 vehicles at 21.9. That's where it'll come from. And again, not that we can do a lot of this because we're not in that great a shape, but where we can, we want to try to buy these smaller vehicles in cash as opposed to borrowing the money and paying for it next year. This is one of those cases where I feel like we're positioned to pay cash.
So again, because we have a little money left over in last year's budget, actual money left over, we can use to purchase both of these vehicles, both 2018 Equinox LS.
Is that from Jackson Chevrolet?
Make a motion that we purchase 2 vehicles from Jackson Chevrolet. An amount of $21,944, or $21,941 each.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. No further discussion. Call the question, all those for buying the 2 Chevrolet Equinox from Jackson Chevrolet, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Tree trimming. Something I'm glad we've done, need to do more of it, which is what we're fixing to talk about.
Okay.
Going to the analysis.
It's not that pretty. So early on, when we first started tree trimming, or at least in,
Can you enlarge that while you're talking?
at least in my time here, I kind of back a napkin, just looked at what it would cost to insource, to evaluate what the contractor was bidding, and determined that we weren't in a position to afford the insource tree trimming because it was going to cost so much money, mostly in hiring labor. Took a little harder look at it, given now that we've got about 3 years of data. We've started to establish some averages, and bear in mind that this is not how an engineer would do it. You know, an engineer would go out and evaluate the line miles and the density of tree trimming required on each mile, and actually come up with a pretty comprehensive calculation. So it's by no means perfect, but given that we've got about 3 years of history here, from a financial standpoint, we've established a pretty good average of about $3,333 per mile is what it cost us to trim trees on our electric lines. In addition to that, or factoring all that in, we know that we need to get to about a 4-year cycle, just from industry standards and from talking with our arborists. We know we want to be between a 4 and a 5-year cycle, and part of what we've been trying to establish on a yearly basis is how much do we need to be spending a year to keep up, to actually have a system that's maintained as opposed to being behind. So the math comes out to $83,325. And again, there's some general, there's some pretty obvious broad assumptions made there. So using some of that same math, you come up with 22 weeks needed to trim the trees. If we were going to insource this, essentially we'd need about half a year of tree trimming capacity. But it would be difficult to hire an employee that would only work 6 months a year. So we assumed 3 full-time employees for a full year. I think it was $15 an hour, and then there's benefits included in that because they're full-time. So we're looking at about $130,000 in labor, and on a 10-year depreciation on used equipment. Used equipment, we believe, the chipper and a used bucket truck that's got the proper insulators and the hydraulic pump, the cooler that's capable of keeping up with that much movement. We think we'd have about $150,000 in equipment. Divide that by 10, which is a little oversimplified. You got about 15 a year in equipment, and then some assumptions on operations and maintenance, fuel, repairs, just kind of a broad scope there on overhead for the equipment, or operation of the equipment. It comes up to about a $157,000 cost to insource. So the question is, do we have another 6 months worth of work for those full-time employees? Because as you can see, it's pretty close to break even on a time basis. We're paying in 6 months to contract about what we would pay in 6 months to insource. The question is, what do you do the other 6 months? The other question is, can we afford $157,000 a year in the operational budget? And right now, I don't feel like we can. I don't feel like we're positioned to do that. So I'm recommending, and have had this conversation some, maybe not in this level of detail, maybe in some cases more detail, during the budget. But as a result of this, in next year's budget, we had budgeted $80,000 for tree trimming, and then also, when we brought in Trees Unlimited, 2.5 months ago, probably, somewhere in that ballpark, council voted to go in and spend $40,000 or somewhere around there this year. And we wanted to do it following ANSI arborist principles to make sure that we're trimming trees appropriately to get the most bang for our buck and to make the trimming last 4 years, 5 years, 7 years if possible. So when we met with Trees Unlimited, we were very strongly encouraging that they follow these standards and also listen to our coaching. Matt Searles has been working with this crew, and as a carrot, what we told them very early on is, if you guys come in and you do this the way we want it done, and listen and learn, we'll do the best we can to keep you here and go ahead and spend next year's budget on tree trimming early so that we keep the same crew that we feel good about. Matt and Thomas, Jim, the guys that have been working with them have been working with them very closely. And there were some bumps in the road early on, but they've been very coachable and have come a long way in terms of following these arborist principles. We feel really good about the crew that we've got. And so as a result of that, I'm making a recommendation that we go ahead and award next year's money, October 1st money, that contract, to Trees Unlimited with the same crew so that we can keep this progress going. So I know that was a mouthful, but.
And so what you're asking us to do is, are they here right now?
They were gone for about a week and a half with the storms in Florida, but they're back.
And if we do what you're asking us to do, they just go ahead right now and keep trimming trees?
Which we've still got a little money in this budget year. I mean, they're gonna be here a few more weeks, or do you know how many more weeks? 3?
At least more, that or more.
Okay, so they're gonna be here a few more weeks either way on the last budget. But if we let them leave, the odds of us getting the same crew back next June, what these guys do is transmission work. So they generally, and the reason that the foreman chose them is because when we sat down and had that pre-meeting or pre-construction meeting, whatever you want to call it, we were adamant about these standards of, going all the way back to the node and all these things. And he selected this crew because they follow those principles more or less on transmission lines. And again, it took a little bit of coaching, but they were pretty fast learners versus the crew that we had a year and a half, the last crew. But it was not nearly as
Efficient as this much.
right in terms of the standards, doing it the right way.
So basically, to keep the same crew that we've already coached up, the city manager wants to go ahead and for us to agree to $80,000, spending $80,000 to continue the tree trimming.
So the question's been for a while, can we just do this in-house? Is this something we can do? And we want to do as much stuff as we can, in-source as much stuff as it makes sense to do. And it sounds to me like based on I understand it can be more in-depth, but I mean, I feel like you've really done a good job with the data you've got. Your recommendation based on that data is we continue to contract this out.
That is my recommendation. And the other thing I'm sure y'all remember, we have tripled our pole replacement. So in terms of the in-house you know, the guys that are doing electric work, they are spending most of their time out there replacing poles and trying to get, trying to get that part of the electric infrastructure
Taking care of.
healthy.
So,
I'll make a motion that we enter into, that we go ahead and enter into the contract with Trees Unlimited, keep the crew that's here. And approve that expenditure of how much? This right here, $80,000?
80,000 is what's budgeted, yeah, and I mean, that's around, I know I've got 83,325.
Well, then I guess I'd just say the expenditure within of up to $80,000, or the budgeted amount.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further questions or discussion? All those for entering into, you got one?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
all right, you can use it, you're gonna use next year's budget, so that actually you won't pay anything for next, until October
That's
first.
right, we won't use any, I mean, we've got money for tree trimming in this year's budget, which has already been voted on, and we're spending that as we speak. That money will last us until October 1st, at which point we would start spending next year's budget. And generally, I know y'all know this, I generally don't ask for capital until we get through the winter, because I like to see how our winter, positions us in terms of cash. But this I feel like is a big enough deal that it's worth the gamble. Plus, I keep hearing, all these yellow jackets, we're going to have to go in, so. Just
Got snowed all one yesterday.
Um,
At the lake.
They're on the wrong way. In all seriousness, I feel strongly enough about this being a critical part of how we keep our infrastructure reliable, especially during bad weather. And which is another argument to go ahead and do it now in case we get an ice storm this winter or snow. I mean, there's another argument to go ahead and get it done before the bad weather in the winter. Those are all factors in the decision.
Any other questions? No further questions? All those for entering into the agreement, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Item I, request for proposal for audit services.
There are multiple files here.
Yes, there are.
I've spoken with y'all about doing an RFP or essentially going out for bid for our auditing service. And found a kind of a standard form from GMA on the website, which was 71 or 74 pages or something. It was extremely cumbersome. I asked Mr. Womack to look at it and see if it really had to be that complex, which he has done. And I was a little bit late getting these in. I don't recall exactly what time I got it to. Between me being in and out of City Hall today and him getting it to me, I realized they haven't been out there for review very long. Being that the auditor is a professional service, we're not required to bid it. We could go to 3 or 5 or even 1 if we wanted to, and ask them to do this for us. I would like to do a request for proposals, which is, my understanding, is somewhat of a simplified bid process to open it up to anybody that wants to bid on it. And in addition to that, if there are known reliable sources from local cities, we'll reach out to them in addition, probably ask them to consider bidding on it. But really what I'm hoping to do here is the auditor, I don't know exactly how long, but I think we've had the same auditor for a long time.
Long as I've been on council.
Okay, probably longer than that. It's really something I've wanted to do since I got here, and given the complexity that it seems to be doing, it's taken a while to get going. So, as much as you're comfortable doing, I would, at a minimum, I would like your approval to start the RFP process for, our year ends on September 31st. As much as approving the proposed agreement, what we really would need to do in the RFP is go ahead and put all this out there and say, if you're bidding on our audit service, you're bidding on this agreement, this contract, all that kind of stuff. And then, once we evaluate these proposals, make a decision on who we would like to go.
Basically, it's just a benchmark for anybody that wants to be on our audit,
It's a
so that
standard,
they can compare apples to apples.
right, it's a standard that clarifies this is what you have to do. Right? These are all the procedures you have to follow. You have to have all these certifications to make sure that our audit is compliant with the state, I think it's the State Department of Audits.
I think you've covered. Well, I'll tell you, I think that my comment would be, we've had the same auditor for at least 6 years. Actually, a lot longer. 16. Super nice guy, and I think he does good work. And I've never had any indication that it's not been good work. But I think that probably best business practices when you have, large entities, like, we just approved a $26+ million budget. Probably smart to 25 plus. It's probably smart to change auditors from time to time. People that do the same audit every year can develop loyalties to certain persons or dependence on certain income, and it's just good to get a new set of eyes in there. I think it's the best thing for the citizens for us to have a policy where we periodically let other auditors take a look. I think it's just good for the citizens for us to do that.
And two, I'd like to see somebody local do that, because and our auditor is not from here.
Were we not taught in new council training that you had to bid it out every 3 years? We had, now you didn't have to change, but you had to bid it.
I don't think there's a half, well, my understanding is it's not a have to, it's certainly a best practice.
I've asked that question before, we went back a couple of years ago.
David is correct. It does, professional services do not have to be bid out, but it is certainly your authority to bid out if you desire.
And I will say, I like for things to be local, and there may be somebody that's local that's interested in this. Probably we're going to get niche. A general just CPA is not going to be interested in this probably. This is a niche business, but also, a lot of the concerns with an auditor is that they be neutral and detached, which is in a small town hard because we're all doing business with each other. So that might be another reason that our auditors come out of the circuit. So.
I'd like to make a motion we put the bid process out to auditors or CPAs to bid.
Request for proposals for audit. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. There are like 1, 2, 3 documents on here, and Ron, it looks to me like that when Ron went over it, he narrowed it down from the 71 pages to about 6 or 7, which looks really, really good to me. So a motion and a second. Any other questions? All right, call the question. All those 4 headed to bid proposal for audit, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, guys. Item J, a subscribed regulatory compliance service agreement with MGAG.
It's This regulatory compliance service is part or one of the services that NGAG provides for the subscribers or for the members of NGAG. And what they're asking is to do an amendment to this agreement that's in place between the cities and NGAG before NGAG can act on it as an entity or as a board. They have to have approval from the cities. And what they're wanting to do is to change there's a clause in here. There's a clause in here when there are cost increases, when the cost of services go up, how they're able to pass that along to the members. And it's very restrictive. It's very restricted to the CPI, to the Consumer Price Index, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I read that.
It's based on the number of meters. So what NGAG is wanting to do is to change.
I think it's item D that you're looking for on page 5, bottom of page 5. Annual subscription cap.
Yeah, so what they're wanting to do is change that so that it's not just number of meters, but also takes into consideration transmission lines and distribution lines, and essentially allows them, in their opinion, to allocate this cost more fairly amongst members. In our case, we come out on the winning end of this. This would be it would be about a $2,000 good guy to us if we were to approve this. So I recommend that we do it. And you know, if we were on the other side of it, if we were looking at it negatively impacting us, then I probably would think about it a little harder and try to give it more consideration. But to be honest, that was kind of the first place I went, is so what, right? You want to do this, well, so what to the Fed? And the so what to the Fed is it's actually good for us. So for that reason, and also Ron, I don't know if he's reviewed with you, but Ron has also reviewed this, and his opinion is that it's purely a revenue. That's what it is. It's a way to distribute revenue more equally. So for that reason, I recommend that we approve it.
Any questions? So I need a motion for the second amendment to the subscribed regulatory compliance service program agreement.
I make a motion, we go into this agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions, discussion? No further question or discussion. All those for entering into the agreement with NGAG, raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Item K, City Manager Green's mowers.
This was somewhat of a late addition. I don't have a memo on it. Mr. Campbell and I, I've been asking for a green mower since I got here. The one that we have is 15 years old, 15 plus, and they have kept it running with broom straw and duct tape for a long time. We looked at a couple at an auction in Moultrie not that long ago, and Ricky's really familiar with the market. He's reached out. He's asked for it in next year's budget. We've got some room in this year's budget, similar to the other conversations, which I can detail in a minute. Between he and I, we can detail. He went and looked yesterday afternoon at a used greens mower with 580 hours on it. It's a 2015 model, so it's a couple years old. The new version of the same mower will be about $25,000. This guy's at $17,000, and Ricky's trying to talk him down. Not sure exactly where we'll land there, may not do a whole lot better than that. But this is one of these, if we're going to keep the golf course in the condition that it's in and take care of it the way that we want to take care of it, this is one of those capital needs that we need to replace. And I think I'll let you add to that, or
One greens mower, we're talking about 17,000 is what?
The last, we bought a greens mower back in 2008, that's the last one we bought. And that was a demo, everything we bought was a used demo, we haven't bought any new stuff since I've been here. Well, I don't know if you were on the council in 2003, we bought all.
I was.
We bought the greens mowers, we bought the wrecker mower, and that's the last time we bought any equipment, and that's old.
That's a long time.
That's a long time
For a lot of hours.
Right, and it was used when we bought it. So,
I make a motion that we purchase the greens mower that we've been talking about for a price not to exceed $17,000.
Is there a second?
I second that.
A motion and a second. Coming out of
this year's budget.
this year's budget, current budget,
Yes, current budget.
it was in there.
The mower wasn't per se, I think you asked for it, and I cut it.
Do we have the money to buy this mower?
We do.
Okay.
And we've got room in the budget between 3 different accounts also to buy them, but not just cash, but we also have room in the budget.
I want to ask a administrative, just paperwork question. When you say you're gonna, I'm kind of embarrassed, I probably shouldn't ask this for everybody. When you say you're gonna take, like before with the body cameras, you said, well, we got the money in this. Do you actually change the budget and we, is it appropriate, is that what we're supposed to do? Should we change the budget and adopt an amended budget? Is that what we're really supposed to do?
What we do administratively, especially within a department, most of what we're talking about is, most of what happens within one department, for instance, like in this case, Ricky will, within that department, reallocate money out of fertilizers into this capital, or this equipment line item, in other words, he'll move budget money from here to here to cover that expenditure. And my understanding, and I wish Brenda was here because I've kind of relied on her history. My understanding is that there was approval in place to do that within a department. When we go outside a department, like in the case of the body cameras, it's my opinion that we should amend the budget. Because I don't believe I have the authority. I know department heads don't. I don't believe I have the authority technically to pull money out of city manager and put it down in place.
And is that gonna show up on an audit if we do it and we don't amend the budget? Is the auditor gonna say,
No.
he's not gonna say
Well, what they're focused on
understand.
is did you book it as capital when it should have been an expense, or vice versa? Did you have council approval per the charter? And that's really what they're focused on. It's really an internal control thing for whether or not we're okay showing over budget here and under budget there. Does that make sense? So, to me, it's a policy decision. If, candidly, if y'all didn't do anything, I'd show it over in police. I'd book this in police, and meaning the expenditure. I'd book the body cameras in police. They'd be over budget. The city manager would be favorable, under budget. I'd let it lie. My opinion in an auditor is, now this may be a bad example, I think you could do it away, but for argument's sake, it would be a problem with an auditor if you took police equipment and booked it under city manager.
Right.
That's an accounting.
Right.
Right? So, depends on what you're trying to solve. But
I just always wondered if it might not be better for us when we make these motions, if we also included just to
amend the budget.
amend the budget to reflect that change, and then
I think it's a good practice because what it would prevent me from doing is, I mean, conceivably, what I could do or a city manager could do to you is, I could come in here and I could, yeah, look, I haven't spent any of my equipment budget in city manager, so we're gonna buy Benji police cameras for 20 grand. And then, not that y'all would forget, but if y'all forgot, in 6 months, I come back and I go, hey, look, I still haven't spent any money in the city manager equipment, I got 32 grand there. I'm gonna buy my armor. And right, I could spend that budget, and I could keep telling y'all I hadn't spent that money. So I think it would be a good, I mean, this is probably foolish for me to say, but it would be a good practice if we're gonna say we're gonna amend the budget. I mean, if we're gonna say that this is where the money's coming from, then probably ought to move it. I mean, that way, you know, it would be a pretty good way to button up that, the next time you ask, the money's not there.
Right. So as we move forward, maybe a policy we can adopt next year.
You think you need to talk to the CPA, make sure you move it correctly next year.
Yeah, I mean, I know that y'all can amend the budget. So doing it the way we're talking about doing it, I know that's okay. If you'd like me, I mean, I don't mind talking to the CPA about it.
You know, we just need to practice it. Right. Give practice to do what we need to do, is time to do something.
Well, I think that we're required, I think we're required to have a balanced budget, and I think that if we are overspending a budget item, that we need to amend the budget so that it stays balanced. I mean, that's been my question, is when we authorize spending an expenditure that's over the budget, over the budgeted amount, what are we doing to reflect that we're doing that? Where are we getting the authority to overspend the budget? And I mean, I guess we have inherent authority, but I think that's vested in our ability to amend the budget, not necessarily our ability to overspend the budget.
Let me get it, I will get a definition from the CPA on that. Based on what I know, my opinion would be yes, but it's at a higher level. Meaning, the auditor's not going to care on that one line item.
Right.
The auditor's going to care about the general fund.
Sure, I understand.
But I can verify.
It's hard to cut off if you once the police department reaches the budget, you go over the budget, and you want to send away home, it's not going to happen. I get figured out, we transfer it over, I guess. Transfer the funds around,
I just think it's best practices if we're taking money out of the budget, if we're taking money from the city manager's technology budget and we're giving it to the police department or whatever, I mean, we should just amend the budget to show that. That way, a year from now, 20 years from now, whatever, somebody can see what we actually did instead of.
I think it could be done in the motion, the same motion where you purchased, I mean, if
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
how you chose to do it.
Yeah, we just amend it as we go. And I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Or I guess
Go back to this lawnmower. You said this one you looked at, it's got 5,100 hours in it?
No, a little over 500 hours.
500, okay, I remember 5,100, that's what. I want to see what the life history is.
All mine has that.
Maybe that's what I was.
So, yeah, we're probably going to need to start doing that. And I think we're okay now with what's going on. So do we have a motion for the mower? Did we go on the mower? Everybody?
We have a motion.
And then we got into the discussion.
I changed the subject, sorry.
But that's okay. So I have a motion and a second. Beecher asked a question on the mower, got our answer on the number of hours. Any other questions? There being no further questions, all those for buying the green mower up to 17,000, raise your hand. Again, the motion carries 4-0. City manager, anything else before we get to comments?
I put a junk.
Yeah, I saw that. It's not on the agenda. That's why I was hollering at you.
I was planning on putting it on October's agenda. I just got it today, so about 4:30, so I just threw it out there for y'all to have more time to review it.
So we'll put it on
Just put it on the October's agenda unless y'all want.
the junk motor vehicle.
We don't have a junk motor vehicle?
We do. Phil's been working with Ron to update it.
Okay. This is an update. We'll look at it in October. Yeah. Okay, so that completes the new business. Comments? Judy?
No, I wasn't around when the storm hit last week, but I understand it was a doozy. But anyway, I appreciate everybody that had part in the cleanup and staying out there all hours and trying to get the power on. You know, I just appreciate all of our city employees and managers. I know they're doing a great job. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Wallace is okay, hopefully he's going to make you go to sleep tonight so you can get some sleep.
Hope so. But I thank everybody also for all the concerns and prayers that went up to Wallace.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments, thank you.
I guess I've had more confidence in city employees in the last 10 days than I think I've had in the last 4 years. I've had people comment on all the city employees during the storm. I mean, people are not complaining, thanking, want to make sure that they thank, and people today thanking for his baby. Most of the time you're going to hear negative stuff, but I've had more people bragging on our city employees in the last week and a half, and I really appreciate the city employees. That's all I have to say.
Chris?
That's kind of what I was gonna say. One, I want to thank David for all his work and what's going on right now. And there is, just noting a few, I mean, paving, dock at the lake, remodeling the fire hall, water lines being replaced, power lines being fixed where they've been down from the trees,
Gas inserts.
gas inserts, event planning. I mean, there's a ton of event planning, events that are about to happen, and already planning for next year events. There's stuff going on with businesses looking to move here. We have a lot of stuff that's going on in this town. And I thank David for every day what you do and driving our employees and all of our department heads, and even from the rec, growing the rec, I see you got volleyball, you're adding tons of programs. I'm excited about where we're headed, what's going on now. We don't get enough recognition for the good things, we always get the bad things, but I just gotta say, I mean, it's exciting to be here and to see the good that's happening. So, thank y'all.
Thank you. I agree with you. Susie, agree with you the same?
Well, she sort of did. But she said she didn't have it quite ready, so she said that she would email y'all.
That'll be good.
And I didn't argue with her.
Thank you. City attorney?
No report.
City manager?
Mr. Shattuck, Mr. Roberts tonight, for everybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, I was Steve Roberts, he came from us, he's our new assistant director at the rec department, came from Dalton. Like I said, like Mr. Davis said, since he's been here, we've already introduced U4 soccer and also started the volleyball program for girls 3rd grade through 6th grade, and they've kind of gone off great, and I really appreciate all the help he's already given us, and excited for what all he's going to help bring. So just wanted to introduce Steve to the group.
Welcome.
Thank y'all. That's it.
Everybody kind of took the words out of my mouth. I've had a lot of compliments on you guys. Thank you. Beecher's right. We normally don't hear good stuff. We normally hear stuff that, hey, got a pothole here that needs to be cleaned, or guys needs to be repaired, or ditch that needs to be cleaned out. Guys, y'all, great work that y'all are all doing. Everybody is doing great work. We appreciate that. Citizens, I'm a citizen. I appreciate that. I had calls the other night for power outages, got the power on quickly. Thank you for that. I know that was a busy night. I know that it involved more than just electricity. It involved public works and probably many other areas. So anytime that happens, and it's great that whenever I turn on the news and EPB's got X amount of customers still out of power, and North Georgia has X amount of customers still out of power, and everybody's got their power back on in Lafayette because of the response time. That's good. That's very, very good. We appreciate that. It involves everybody. I mean, yesterday I'm on my way down the hill to go to the TV station, WDEF, and I called Benji and I said, hey, the red light's not working at all down at the foot of the hill. Well, we had a power outage that is the reason that it wasn't there. Benji sent an officer there to direct traffic just to keep stuff from happening until the power got back on. So that's the kind of stuff that you get in a small town. I picked up Rachel Williford, and she was in the car whenever I called you. And she says, man, this doesn't happen in Chattanooga. It doesn't happen in Hamilton County where you call and you get it done right there. That's what Chris is talking about. That's nice to live in the small town that we live in. So thank you guys. Thanks for all that had to be done during the storm a week ago last night, basically. It did blow through here pretty good. I'm glad it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was bad. Any more comments? I need a motion to enter into executive session and look at real estate litigation and / or personnel.
Make a motion.
Is there a second? Second. We will enter into executive session. And we will be back to adjourn the meeting after executive session. Thank you, guys.